Hey, what's going on, guys? We have some breaking news. Dana White just announced 2 more fights for UFC 300. We have Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway, a 5-round fight for the BMF title. And we also have Bobby Green versus Jim Miller, which we'll talk about a little bit towards the end of this video. Let's start off with Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway for the BMF title. This is a special feat by the UFC. This is a special feat by Dana White in the UFC. Justin Gaethje is one of the most exciting fighters on the roster, arguably in the prime of his career. Max Holloway, one of the most exciting fighters on the roster, arguably in the prime of his career. How do they put those two fighters on UFC 300 and somehow make it worse? They somehow make UFC 300 worse by putting these two fighters on the card. And I've been a staunch defender of UFC 300, and I'll still defend it a little bit in this video. We'll go over the full card, because supposedly this isn't even the co-main event. So my guess is this is going to be somewhere on the main card. I mean, this could be one fight off of the opener of the main card. That's how crazy this card could be, even with those two names. I just hate this matchup. I hate this matchup. And I haven't had time to gauge fan interest or fan opinion on this matchup yet, because I've seen the news 10 minutes ago and then I ran in and decided to make this video right away. I hate it. I don't think it's competitive. Early prediction, Justin Gaethje ends the career of Max Holloway. I have no desire to see this matchup. And, you know, on top of it not being competitive, I think Justin Gaethje is going to kick the legs off of Max Holloway and probably brutally KO him. Then on top of that, you got to throw the shit stain that is the BMF title on top of it. We're having a WWE gimmick belt on the line for this fight. What happened to Dana White? Francis Ngannou wants gimmick fights, and that's just not what we do here. Unless it's Justin Gaethje versus Dustin Poirier, unless it's Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. We have a fake, they're literally making up fake titles. Why don't we make a hardcore belt next? I want somebody defending it anywhere they go. I want steel chairs included. I want someone to break out of Charlotte. You know what, matter of fact? I want to see somebody break out of Shillelagh and win a title that way. Why don't we do that as well? I mean, I don't understand. The BMF title was supposed to be one moment in time for UFC 244. And I didn't like it then, but I said, you know what? It's a one-time thing, but I do worry this is a slippery slope. And then sure enough, 2023 comes around. They need a main event for UFC 291. They're like, oh yeah, let's do Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje for the BMF title. Jorge Masvidal retired and he vacated the belt. And look where we're at now. Next thing you know, let's start up an Intercontinental title. Let's start up whatever title the UFC wants to see fit, just so they can put championship titles in different people's hands to make cards seem bigger and better. We don't need the BMF title. The BMF title's fraudulent. It's fraudulent. It means nothing. Why do we have to throw this a title defense for Justin Gaethje? Justin Gaethje's defending his BMF title. That's corny as hell. That's corny as hell. I hate this. And you talk about, oh, the UFC and WWE and the merger under the TKO parent company. The UFC has spent far too much time in the last 2 years catering to casual fans. And I've been rallying against it. Oh, Kobe deserves a title shot because he talks crap. And he's a draw, supposedly, even though he's not. Oh, we need Sean O'Malley versus Chito Vera because it's an interesting backstory. Forget about Marab. I don't understand why we have to keep catering to casual fans over and over and over again. And us as hardcore fans, we let them get away with it time and time again, and it's a slippery slope. 5, 6, 7 years ago, this would have been laughed out of the building. This would have been laughed out of the building. I know you're going to say, oh, well, 2019, blah, blah, blah. That was one moment in time. And it was kind of laughed about at that point in time, too. It was gimmicky then as well. But Dana's like, oh, this is a one-time thing. So now, this is whenever the UFC sees fit. We're just going to have, people, I don't pay close enough attention to boxing. But people are always saying, oh, boxing's too hard to follow. Boxing's got so many belts and this and that, and it's hard to follow. Well, now we're just going to have a BMF title now? It's just going to be defended now at UFC 300. Talk about a shit stain on UFC 300. And I've been defending UFC 300. This makes it worse. I hate the BMF title, but forget about the BMF title for a minute. Let's put that to the side. This is a dog shit matchup. Justin Gaethje's going to beat the shit out of Max Holloway. This isn't even going to be competitive. Justin Gaethje's in the prime of his career, coming off a brutal KO over Dustin Poirier. coming off a win against Rafael Fiziev at lightweight. Meanwhile, Max Holloway, who did he beat in his last fight? Oh yeah, that's right, the dead body of the Korean zombie Chan Sung Jung. Oh, so Max Holloway now, and I guarantee this was just thrown together in the last month. So Max Holloway's going to have, even if he knew a month ago, essentially he's going to have 4 months, 4.5 months to move up to lightweight. He's going to be undersized. I've seen this story before. UFC 236. We saw Max Holloway on like 2 months' notice step up to fight Dustin Poirier for a vacant lightweight title, and Dustin Poirier beat the shit out of him. And I know it was a competitive fight. I know it was a mildly competitive fight, but the power differential was so clear, and Justin Gaethje is better now than Dustin Poirier was then. Justin Gaethje has more power than Dustin Poirier. What's one of Max Holloway's biggest weaknesses? It was exposed against Alexander Volkanovski. You know what it was? It was leg kicks. Justin Gaethje has some of the nastiest leg kicks in the UFC. He is going to batter Max Holloway. He's going to end Max Holloway's career and take his chin too. He's going to knock him out. Max Holloway's already very hittable. Justin Gaethje is going to end his career. Also, we can have a BMF title on the line. And I've been against the people crapping on UFC 300. I have no problem with people crapping on this fight. This is a horrible matchup for a dumbass gimmick title. They can't even say it out loud. It's the BMF title. Baddest motherfucker. They can't even say it out loud, but yet they want to throw a belt on the line. This is corny. This honestly kind of ruined my day. And Max Holloway, whoever is managing his career, is an idiot. An absolute idiot. Because Max Holloway, this is going to sound crazy, but Max Holloway has never been as close to a featherweight title shot, another featherweight title shot, as he is right now. Because guess what? Alexander Volkanovski, in his mid-30s, coming off a KO loss against Islam Makhachev. Now he's fighting Ilia Topuria in 1 month. If he loses to Ilia Topuria, maybe he gets a rematch, maybe he loses again, maybe he wins. But the point is, if he loses to Ilia Topuria, the division has been flipped upside down. It has been flipped on its head. Maybe Volk wants to take some time off after that. And guess who's right in line for the next title shot? That would be Max Holloway. Why would he not wait till at least next month to take this fight? It ruins his chances at featherweight now, because if he goes up against Justin Gaethje, gets brutally chinned, he's not just going to go back down to featherweight, all of a sudden get a title shot. Even if Ilia Topuria is the champion, they're going to move on to some other contender who's actually on a winning streak and hasn't got brutally chinned up a weight class against Justin Gaethje. It's going to devalue him, and I think it's going to end his career. Max Holloway's always been hittable, but he's been known for his durability because he's not fighting these heavy hitters at 145. Justin Gaethje's a heavy hitter up a weight class. I think this is going to end Max Holloway's career, to be honest. So I'm going Justin Gaethje by brutal KO against Max Holloway, and I think he's going to take his legs as well. He's going to chop his legs repeatedly. That's been consistently a weakness for Max Holloway. And, that's what makes this fight just unappealing to me in any capacity. I don't see the competitive nature to this fight. I don't care about the gimmick BMF title. I know the casuals will probably be like, oh yeah, can't wait to see the BMF title. I can't wait. I want to see somebody hide under the cage. Maybe they'll have Hornswoggle hide underneath the cage. And when Max Holloway's losing, someone will distract the ref. Keith Peterson will be reffing this fight. Someone will throw a pack of Marlboro Reds off to the side. And, Hornswoggle can give Max Holloway a shillelagh. Maybe that's how he wins the fight. I mean, that's what we're at this point. This is WWE. This is WWE at its best. Or at its worst. I absolutely hate this. This is what the UFC is becoming now. This is what they're becoming, all to prop up UFC 300, which didn't even need this. I know there's a lot of fans complaining about UFC 300, but if you look at the full card right now, it's absolutely stacked, and we don't even have the main or co-main event yet. So I'm thinking we're going to get 3 title fights plus the BMF title fight. So 4 title fights if you want to count the WWE belt of the BMF title. You're looking at it right now. You have Davison Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. You have Bo Nickel versus Cody Bumditch. You have Calvin Kattar, Aljamain Sterling. You have Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan. You have Yuri Prohaska, Alexander Rakic. You have Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan. And then now we have Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway. And there's rumors we're going to get Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad. My guess is we also get Alex Pereira potentially against Magomed Ankalaev or Jamal Hill if Jamal Hill is available and he's healed up from his injury and he's not going to rematch his brother. I think this card's going to be incredibly stacked. And the fact that we can get Justin Gaethje and Max Holloway on a card and it's not even the co-main event potentially not even the featured fight on the card. You could actually build the card. You could have UFC 300 as Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev for the light heavyweight title. Co-main event, Leon Edwards versus Bilal Muhammad 2 for the welterweight title. Featured fight on the card, you could have Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan for the women's strawweight title. Then below that, you would have Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway for the BMF title. Then below that, my guess is you would do Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. That is a crazy main card. So at the end of the day, UFC 300 still isn't ruined, but I think it's worse with this matchup. I think this is a dog shit matchup. And also, where does this leave Islam Makhachev? What happens now? Because every contender at lightweight is tied up, and there's talk of Islam Makhachev fighting in June. All these fights are happening in mid-April. So who is Islam Makhachev fighting? That's what I'm wondering. Because you look at the division, it makes absolutely no sense. Charles Oliveira is ranked number 1. He's fighting Arman Tsarukyan, who's ranked number 4. Justin Gaethje is now fighting Max Holloway. Justin Gaethje is number 2, and it was basically down to Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje, or Arman Tsarukyan for the next lightweight title shot. Dustin Poirier has a fight against Benoit Saint-Denis at UFC 299, and Dustin Poirier is coming off a loss. Then you have Chandler versus Conor supposedly going to happen. I don't know, if that's going to happen in the cage or maybe the NBA Finals public restroom. Then you're at Gamrot. Gamrot's going to get what are we going to get, a throwaway title fight with Gamrot? I don't want to see Gamrot fight Islam at this point in his career. Absolutely not. So who is Islam Makhachev fighting? If he wants to fight in June or even July is too quick of a turnaround for whoever's fighting in mid-April. Unless they get out unscathed, I guess Justin Gaethje goes out there, brutally chins Max Holloway in the first round. Justin Gaethje can make a quick turnaround. Maybe that's what they're hoping for, but why bank on that? Why bank on that? We've banked on it before and it hasn't worked. Dricus du Plessis, last year we should have saw him fight Israel Adesanya. We didn't get to see that because the UFC banked on Robert Whittaker or du Plessis being able to make a quick turnaround. So who does Islam Makhachev fight? Maybe, just maybe, and I doubt this would happen, but I would actually love this scenario. Maybe you have UFC 299, which takes place on March 9th, I believe it is. Co-main event is Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis. If Benoit Saint-Denis goes out there and beats up Dustin Poirier and finishes Dustin Poirier, have him turn around. That's still 3 months if you want to have him fight in mid-June. That's 3 months turnaround. That's 12 weeks turnaround. So it wouldn't be horrible in terms of the amount of turnaround time. And if he beats Dustin Poirier, I wouldn't mind Islam Makhachev versus Benoit Saint-Denis. But I wouldn't bank on that either. Dustin Poirier may win that fight. And then Dustin Poirier shouldn't get another title shot at all. He just lost to Justin Gaethje, and Justin Gaethje should be fighting for the title. Or Charles Oliveira should be fighting for the title, who just brutalized, Beneil. So, and then also you have Arman Tsarukyan, who just brutalized Beneil. So I don't know what's going to happen with the lightweight division, but it's just annoying that UFC 300 now, it's got a shroud over it, in my opinion. We're living in a UFC era where they're obsessed with mixing in WWE titles. What are we going to put a spinner on the belt next? Is that what we're going to do? This honestly sickens me. I don't know what sickens me more, the BMF title or the matchup. I think it's the matchup. As much as I hate the BMF title and I've been harping on it, at least if it was a good matchup, like if they did Justin Gaethje versus Benoit Saint-Denis for the BMF title, I think that'd be forgivable. Let me know if I'm wrong in the comments. I think that'd be forgivable. I could forgive that. I could forgive that. Justin Gaethje, Benoit Saint-Denis for the BMF title, UFC 300. I think that was on my card builder. Matter of fact, the video I did 3 weeks ago. I could forgive that. But Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway? We know who's going to win that fight. We already know who's going to win that fight. It's going to be Justin Gaethje. And then on top of that, you throw that dog turd of the BMF title on the line. It doesn't make any sense at all. I just think it's a disgrace, and the belt's meaningless. But on top of that, we're not even going to get a competitive fight. It just makes no sense. And, it is what it is. I understand the UFC is still going to stack the card, so I'm not going to cry too much about it. Because, again, I went over the card. It's still stacked. Weili Zhang, Yan Xiaonan, I know people were complaining about that. That's a banger fight. I don't care what anyone says. That's a banger fight. That's not the co-main. Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway isn't the co-main. At least it hasn't been announced as a co-main. So, assuming we still get at least 2 more title fights. That's what I'm assuming. So we're going to have 3 title fights plus the BMF title, 4 title fights, and plus the cards are already crazy stacked. My dream card is what I went over earlier. I want Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev or Jamal Hill as the main event. Co-main event, Leon Edwards, Bilal Muhammad 2. featured fight, Weili Zhang versus Yan Xiaonan. Opening up the main card, Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. Then the prelims, headlining the prelims, you'll have Yuri Prohaska versus Alexander Rakic. Then below that, you'll probably have Aljamain Sterling versus Calvin Kattar. And then somewhere in the prelims, you'll have Davison Figueiredo, Cody Garbrandt. Probably opening up the early prelims, you'll have Bo Nickel versus Cody Bumditch. And then somewhere on there, you'll have Jim Miller versus Bobby Green, which honestly is just a novelty fight. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I love it as an early prelim. Jim Miller is, Jim Miller has been out there getting wins. He's been putting in work. I don't want to disrespect him. He's 40 years old. He's been around forever. He's taken a lot of damage. I don't hate the fight against Bobby Green. I don't love the fight against Bobby Green. I think it's decent matchmaking. I mean, Bobby Green just got absolutely destroyed in his last fight against Jalen Turner. So I don't even like that quick of a turnaround, to be honest. I don't like a 5-month turnaround for Bobby Green after, he just got absolutely brutalized. Who was the referee in that matchup? What an idiot. I mean, how did he not stop that fight? So this is a fight that's been booked multiple times. I actually went to UFC 172. And I think I still have the booklet I bought there at, way back when I went to that card. It was John Jones, Glover Teixeira. And I remember Jim Miller versus Bobby Green was supposed to be on the card. But I think Bobby Green pulled out with an injury. So this is a novelty fight of two UFC kind of veterans who've been around forever. Early prediction for this matchup, I'm going Jim Miller. I'm going the old farmhand and Jim Miller. I don't trust Bobby Green's chin. I think he had a fluky win over Grant Dawson. He had a competitive fight against Tony Ferguson before he got the finish in the third round. So I'm going Jim Miller. I like that fight more than I like Gaethje versus Holloway. At least this is a competitive fight. At least this is a matchup that kind of makes sense right now. And Jim Miller deserves to be on UFC 300. He deserves to go out on a big card. I do think it's going to be placed on the early prelims, most likely looking at the card right now, or maybe opening up the regular prelims. But overall, I'm going Jim Miller for an early prediction. You guys will have to let me know what you guys think about Justin Gaethje versus Max Holloway, because I'm sickened by this. And imagine we get some injuries and this ends up being like the main event. Oh my God, I don't even want to imagine that. I don't even want to imagine that. Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway, BMF title, main event of UFC 300. If you remember, UFC 200 was cursed. We ended up getting Amanda Nunes versus Miesha Tate as the main event for UFC 200, which was an absolute disgrace back then, but really wasn't the UFC's fault. So I hope something like that doesn't happen. I hope this card is stacked and has some backups for the big title fights, whatever they decide to book for the main event. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Again, I'm going Justin Gaethje, brutal KO, probably first or second round. And I think he's going to end Max Holloway's career. And then for the other fight, I'm going Jim Miller, probably by TKO. I think Bobby Green's brains have been turned to mush by Jalen Turner and the referee in his last fight. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And thank you so much for watching.